In this video, I'm going to take you through my top 10 things I love about the Canon R8, and I really feel like this camera is an awesome addition to Canon's lineup and entry level. Can we call it entry level? $1,500 US. Maybe it's not entry level, but I certainly think this is a game changer for anyone who's wanting to get into video. I'm going to talk in this video specifically about the video specs and the things I like about it. So to kick it off, number one, and this is a big one for me because I've been in this ecosystem of Canon Log for a long while now. And if you know me, I create my own LUTs as well in Canon Log and Canon Log 3. And the R8 has got Canon Log 3 installed. So you get that 10-bit 422, and it really is great. You get extra color, extra dynamic range, something I never thought Canon would do, but they must be listening. So that's an awesome thing. Number two is the 4K fine, and it's a 6K image downsampled to 4K, same as the R6 Mark II. But the benefit of it is that it goes all the way up to 60 frames per second. Now with the R5, which I'm shooting on right now, that actually stops at 30 frames per second. Then you go into like a pixel binned or frame blended or some other form of not as good quality. It loses a little bit of quality, but the R8 keeps that 6K downsampled to 4K all the way up to 60 frames per second. So I don't really shoot much in 100 frames per second, so mostly using 50 or 60p slow motion in my productions. So that's really, really good for me. So point number three is around record limits, and the R5 has still got this limit of 30 minutes, which is kind of, I've got used to it. I'm not that annoyed by it, but the R8 has a 2-hour record limit in all the frames rates except 120 and 180. So that's awesome. That kind of opens you up for longer form content. You don't have to worry about monitoring it as much. And if the thing is good with heat, which we don't know yet, I haven't had one in my hands yet. No one's really tested this thing yet for heat, but the R8 is good for up to 2 hours record time, which is an awesome addition. And I'm glad they've removed the 30 minutes. So hopefully we get a firmware update on the R5 to release the record limit as well. Number four is false color. Now, I was amazed to see this in their non-cine line and entry level. You know, I thought maybe they would put it in like an R5 or an R6 Mark II, maybe the R3, but they've actually put it into the R8, which is kind of the RP. I think most people are saying it's like the upgrade for the RP, and we won't see an RP Mark II. I don't even think we're going to see an EOS R Mark II either, but here we are with an R8 $1,500 camera with false color, and that's really good for anyone who's done work on cinema line cameras or is sort of more cinematographer than videographer. Then having that in the camera is really nice just to check your exposure levels. It's a really quick way to do it. So I think it's awesome that they've added in, and I'm hoping again for firmware upgrades that'll put it into other cameras like the R5. It'd be really cool to see that. So number five is an obvious one that I love, and that is the full frame sensor. It means when I'm going for a run and gun shoot, I kind of take the R5 over my Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera or anything with the smaller sensor size. I just feel like it gives me this little bit of extra edge on the footage. And when I'm using like a lens at 2.8, I kind of get a nicer depth of field. I feel like I get a nicer depth of field. So having that on the R8 is awesome. Full frame. They didn't try and like do an R7 and crank it down with a smaller sensor, which I really love that they've kept that full frame with the RF system. We know it's a really nice combo. So I'm really happy to see that in the R8. Number six is a toggle switch between photo and video. Something I have got used to. I've mapped my toggle to a function button on the R5, so I could just hit the function button and it jumps across. But having a toggle switch is good because it frees up that button to be used for something else. And I wish they had that on the R5. But like I say, I've got used to it, but having it on the R8 is really nice and a great addition. I think it's worthwhile just to be able to really quickly change. If I'm doing a run and gun, sometimes I am getting photography as well, and just some clips and snaps that I want to capture. And if I'm doing my own filming and shooting, then I'm always jumping to photos because I love the image coming out of the R5. So having that on the R8 is really, really nice. Number 7 is the MultiFunction Shoe. And I think having a mic that fits that MultiFunction Shoe without a cable and having the mic turn on when you turn the camera on, but no cable dangling down would be really good. I know that the cable dangling down kind of is in the way of the screen on some reviews that I've seen because it's kind of up in the wrong spot, a little bit less of a body width as well. So it kind of gets in the way of the flippy screen. So having the option to put a mic on top and not have a cable would be awesome. And then other things like flashes and other accessories to go on top of the camera with that multifunction hot shoe. That's a really nice addition, and I hope to see that to come into some of the higher end mirrorless Canon cameras in future, like hopefully the R5 Mark II has something like that. And even having other companies build aftermarket options to use would be awesome as well. So yeah, that's a cool addition. I like to see that in more of Canon's lineup in future. Number 8, dual pixel autofocus, and it's the same as the 6D Mark II. I think it's even a little bit more superior than the R5 just because they've added a few more functions for tracking. And yeah, I mean, we know about the autofocus system. Well, it's pesky though. You know, my R5 is actually playing up a little bit recently. It seems to just, when I'm doing like a screen recording and I'm gesturing with my hands and stuff, it seems to sometimes jump in and out of focus, and I've tweaked it to the point of no return. I've gone in there and I've gone over all the settings. I've tried to get it exactly right, but it just still has some little issues. And with the RF 24 to 70f 2.8, it's still got some issues. So I don't know why, but I'm really happy to see that they haven't downgraded and given us a lesser quality AF system in the R8. And for $1,500, that is packing a whole lot of punch in the autofocus department. So I'm really stoked to see that in this camera. Number 9 is a new feature I haven't seen before. Maybe it is in the 6D Mark II. Comment below if it is or not, I'm not sure, but it's the anti-flicker setting for video. So it's a high frequency anti-flicker mode. And I think it means you can just shoot without worrying about like LEDs or whether there's different frequency lighting. And that would be really good actually for me because I like to sometimes shoot in 60 frames per second, but in Australia, because the frequency of our power is actually at that same level, I've got to be really careful that I don't introduce flicker when I'm shooting in 60 frames per second. So having the ability to, if I'm seeing flicker in a mixture of lighting scenarios, just being able to turn that on and then that removes flicker from the footage, that is a game changer. So I'm really stoked to see that on the camera, which is really cool. Number 10 is one that I think is awesome, is USB to charge the camera or power the camera. And so basically we know, okay, a little bit of a downer with the R8 is the battery, okay? Yes, it's not a great idea. They put this battery in. They wanted to get the body size smaller, but they've put a battery in that is a little bit small to my liking. And it only probably lasts half an hour when you're really hammering the camera and you're using maybe like a 60 frame per second or like a high recording frame rate. So it's a little bit of a downer, but you can then just use an external battery with a USB connection to charge the camera or power the camera while you're shooting, which is really cool. And I would probably go with some kind of external dummy battery anyway, but the battery would be in the back of my mind if I didn't have another option for either that external USB port or having a dummy battery set up in the camera and plug that into the power. So it's great that it's got the ability to power it off USB as well. Finally, a bonus one is focus breathing. And I believe this is coming to the R5 in a firmware update, but basically it allows you that when you focus the lens, it doesn't actually change the depth of the edges of the frame. So it's an electronic thing that they've introduced but with the RF system. So that's pretty cool. I do focus pulls now and again, and I don't really notice too much of that breathing when I do it, but in post I've had to correct other footage that's had breathing before. So to just take that out by a setting and not have that focus breathing being a problem for when you're doing longer focus pulls, that is a nice feature on an entry level camera. So two downsides are battery life, which I mentioned before is a little bit of a problem. And the second downside I think is you're only getting IPB. You're not getting all eye codecs. So I'm not sure how that works with the Canon Log 3 because it's still a 10-bit 422 codec, but with all the other shooting modes, you're only getting an IPB kind of thing. So you would be forced, or I would be forced to always shoot in Canon Log 3. So if you're not into Canon Log 3 like I am, then that may not be good for you, but I love Canon Log 3 and I've got my LUT set up to just apply it now on the footage. I don't really do a lot of color grading anymore. If it's a piece to camera and there's not too much shot matching that I need to deal with, especially this exact shot, I'm selling this LUT and this look on my website where you can just apply it and, you know, desaturate it a little bit or saturate it a bit more to your liking, but pretty much it's a one-click wonder. And so I've got that on my workflow, which means I shoot in Canon Log all the time and I utilize that 10-bit 422. So for me, not as much of a problem that it doesn't have the all-eye codecs. If you're looking for this camera to shoot it in like a standard picture profile, well then just know that those codecs are only IPB. Well, that's kind of all for this video. I think to wrap it all up, I would say that this is the best, I think, the best entry-level camera. And I say entry-level because I'm not talking like $300-400. I'm talking $1,500 to $2,000 to get yourself into video production, starting your own business, or wanting to journey with it as a hobby. Then this is the best bang for buck camera. And it's going to rival things like the 6D Mark II, which is the same sensor. And it's even going to knock on the door of the Canon R5, which is like a $3,500 to $4,000 just body. And so you're looking at a really great entry level for a fraction of the cost. So hopefully this video has helped you. I just wanted to get this out there and say that I'm excited for the R8, and I think I'm probably going to get one and add it into my kit because I'm running two cameras. I've got the R5 and the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, but matching them up is always a little bit more of a challenge. I've got the LUTs sorted out for both of those cameras, so they match up pretty well without too much tweaking, but just having the same sensor or a similar sensor and the Canon colors on both will be a game changer. So I'm looking forward to getting my hands on one, and I'll try and get my hands on one and do like a full review. These are kind of just my initial thoughts, but if you want me to do a review on it, comment below and let me know, and I'll try and get my hands on a pre-production model or a model when it comes out, and I can do a full review of it and use it as I would with any other of my reviews. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.